Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you are working with Flutter and Firebase but struggling with authentication and Firestore CRUD operations using the block pattern, then this video is for you. Today we are going to build a fully functional Firebase authentication system using Flutter Bloc framework. We will also implement CRUD operations with Firestore so you can seamlessly add, update and delete data. But that's not all. I will also share the challenges I faced during the process and how I solved them. So by the end of this video, working with Flutter Bloc plus Firestore will be a piece of cake for you. Excited? Let's jump right in. So first thing we need to do is create a Flutter project. You can create a Flutter project using Flutter create command. In place of your project name, just you have to use the project name you are using. Next step is to set up Firebase. So you need to go to add Firebase to your Flutter app page and you need to go to install the Firebase CLI. So when you visit this page, install Firebase CLI, it will give you two options. Either you can go for standalone binary or you can go for npm. I would recommend you to go for the npm option, because if you install this Firebase tool globally using npm, you can run the Firebase commands in your project terminal. So go for this option. I did try the standalone binary, but after that few of the commands were not working correctly in the project terminal panel, so it's better to install it using npm. After installing the Firebase tools, you need to log in the Firebase. So to do that, you will be using Firebase login command. Before you log into Firebase, I assume that you have already registered in the Firebase console. So you need to register in the Firebase console, and after login from the terminal, you need to create a project here. Again, there are two options to create the project. Either you can create a project from terminal or you can create a project from web panel. So I would recommend you to go for the web panel, because if you go for the terminal, you might face some issues or errors. So it's smooth and easy to do it from web panel. So just create a project and follow the steps, give the project name and follow the default steps, and that will create a project for you like this. After creating the project, you need to go to the authentication panel, and in the sign in method you need to enable email and password. Once this is done, you can go back to this terminal and you can fire the command Firebase configure. The command is even given in the documentation. Sorry, the command is flutter fire configure. So this is the command you need to use, and you need to just follow the default steps, and it will set up the Firebase in your project. Okay, now the next thing to do is that you need to install the dependencies for this Firebase. So you need to go to pubspec YML and you need to install all these packages. Flutter Bloc, because we will be using Flutter Bloc as state management. Equatable, because Equatable is needed for Flutter Bloc state management. Then we need to go for Firebase core, we need to go for Firebase Auth, and we need to go for Cloud Firestore. This Firebase messaging is optional. I'm not doing this part in this video, so I will just skip it. For now it is optional for you to install this package. After installing the dependencies, now we have already configured the Firebase in our project. After the Firebase is configured, you will get a file like this, Firebase JSON and Firebase options. These all files will be automatically generated, and I think, yeah, we are ready now to understand the code. One more thing I would like to mention here, that after setting up the Firebase in your project, if you try to run the project, you might get an error saying that you need to upgrade your minimum SDK of Android. So in that case, you need to go to build Gradle, the build Gradle in the app. You need to go to this build Gradle and you need to upgrade the minimum SDK number. So here you need to upgrade it. By default there is this Flutter minimum SDK is set. This is the constant that has the number of this minimum SDK, but we need I removed it because I needed to upgrade it, and I set the minimum SDK to 23. And now my project is ready for the code. So now let's go ahead and understand the code. Let's understand the structure of the project. So I have here blocks, I have models, I have repository, and I have screens. In blocks I have auth block and item block. Again, in auth block I have auth state, auth event, and auth block. In item block I have item state, item event, and item block. In models I have item model. In repository I have auth repository and item repository. And in screens I have home screen, login screen, and register screen. So let's go ahead and understand each code one by one. So let's start with auth repository. Auth repository is responsible for interaction with Firebase authentication service. Here we have sign in method for login, sign up method for user registration, and sign out method for user logout. Item repository is responsible for interaction with Firestore DB. Here we have fetch method to get list of items, add item method to create a new item, and delete item method to remove an item. Here we have events related to authentication flow. Bloc will listen to these events and create appropriate state on auth event trigger. Here we have CRUD related events which get triggered when user performs CRUD operation. Here we have all possible states that the authentication process can be in. When Bloc will emit an auth event, there will be change in state and a new state will be set from among any of these states. Here we have list of all possible item states, and when block will emit CRUD operation event, there will be new state set from among these states. Auth block has business logic related to authentication. It's intermediary between auth event and auth state. It provides listener for all the auth events that we create. On event trigger, it sets the appropriate state. Item block has all the business logic for CRUD operation. On trigger of an item event, it sets appropriate state after performing operations like fetch item, add item, or delete item. Item model is structure of the properties like item ID and item name. It will hold the value of the items in CRUD operation. Finally, here we have home screen, login screen, and register screen. In login screen, we have this block consumer which has a listener, and when the login button is clicked, this is the login button, we use the sign in event to we add the sign in event so that the sign in event is emitted and the state is set to loading, and then there is a sign in using the Firebase, and then if the sign in is successful, then the user is redirected because there is a listener that is listening. If the user is authenticated, if successful authentication is there, user is navigated to home screen. In case there is an error, then there is a message that is displayed in red that what's the error. And similar thing happens in register screen. When the register button is pressed, sign up event is emitted, and we pass this email and the password, and if the sign up is successful, then the user is redirected to home screen. The user is also authenticated, and if the sign up has some errors, the error will be displayed to the user. Once the user is redirected to home screen, then this block builder is triggered. This block provider is triggered. This block provider, in this block provider, first the item block is the item repository is instantiated. The item repository fetches all the items and pass this to item block. Then item block adds the event fetch item event, and when this fetch item event is triggered, then this block builder is rebuilt, and in this block builder we check that if item is loading. If item is loading, then a circular progress bar is shown. If item is already loaded, then this list will be displayed to the user. In this list we have a delete button, and if this delete button is tapped, then this delete item event is triggered with the item ID. Here we also have a floating action button. In the floating action button we have a block builder, and we also have a show add item dialog. In this show item dialog, we are actually taking input of the name of the new item, and on press of the button of this dialog, we add item event is dispatched and a new item is created. Now one thing to notice here is that this floating action button need to be wrapped with block builder, and the context that we are passing here, that need to be given a different name rather than a generic context name. Otherwise this context will override this context and it will not trigger this add item event. For this add item event we need to use this block context, and if you use this block context, then only this event will be triggered. This is a very important point, and if you miss it, then the new item event won't be triggered. I had to do a lot of hard work to find this, so just make sure that you don't forget to do it. So that's it. This is the code, and now let's run this code and see how it works.